Today, we're going to be spitting facts about the best draft classes from the 2021 NFL class. A lot of teams came out with a lot of value, but what teams came out with the most? That's what we're going to get into today. All right, so number one, ladies and gentlemen have all been waiting for. It was actually Anisha's number 5, and that's in Foxborough, New England Patriots. I cannot be high enough on that number one pick of getting Mac Jones, just falling into their lap. Kind of talked about it on the Cold Hard Truth podcast with Aaron Rodgers falling into Green Bay's lap, obviously a decade and a half ago, and just seeing like Mac Jones had all this conversation about going number 3, being that Mac Jones replica for Kyle Shanahan, who obviously got the MVP season out of Matt Ryan. They went with Trey Lance, who has a higher ceiling, and it might work out for them down the road. But for the Patriots, like you said, Mac Jones is kind of a poor man's Tom Brady. There's not really anything Tom Brady does on the football field from an athletic standpoint, from a throwing power, accuracy standpoint, that Mac Jones hasn't been proven that he can do on the field. Does he have the intangibles of Tom Brady? That's what we'll find out. But the fact that he's Nick Saban's most accomplished, most productive quarterback in his history, and the relationship that Saban and Belichick have just makes it very interesting. And the fact that he's going to be Belichick's greatest quarterback successor, and it is Saban's greatest quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think this could very well be known as the draft that Mac Jones went to the Patriots. But then they added on to it by getting Christian Barmore, the defensive lineman out of Alabama, who, like you said, was the number 1 defensive tackle in the class. And then Ronnie Perkins, an edge rusher that has first-round talent, that has a very high ceiling, can be a real playmaker for them on the defensive end. So they might have fewer projected starters in this class than some of the other teams they went over. But when you get a franchise quarterback and don't have to give up any capital, it's not like the 49ers who had to give up all these other picks. It's not like these other teams that had to lose a ton of games last year to get that guy. The Patriots were able to get him in the middle of the first round, and he can be an instant player if they choose to play him this year, or if they let Cam Newton play and Mac Jones takes over. It almost seems like this could be the second coming, and Mac Jones could really be the next guy to bring them to title contention.
I love the list. I think every pick you guys answered was true and true. I love the analysis on Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones, the intangibles, it's similar pedigree because, he's been in these big games and, they were asked to throw him into the fire. He played behind Jalen Hurts, played behind Tua Tagovailoa, and then they throw him out, 2020 and say, hey, go win us a national championship. And he says, watch this, throw 5 touchdowns, the biggest game of his life. So he's got those type of intangibles. Let's see if they translate. Obviously, he needs to work a little bit on progressing reads past the first primary option, but his placement throws are on point. I love the Mac Jones pick, and also you guys' analysis on every other player that you guys did. Hands down, I agreed with.
And that's a great point about Mac Jones, of just the fact that all this talk about what he can't do athletically, his DUIs earlier on in his life, as those are his intangibles. But look what he did in the big moments. Look what he did in the biggest games of the year against the Georgias, against the Floridas, against the SEC championships and the national championships. Those were his best games. He literally had his best games, and everyone's like, oh, look at his supporting cast. Waddle was out most of the year. It was really just Devontae Smith, who obviously was a Heisman and terrific player. But would he have been the Heisman with a different quarterback? I don't know. They're both on the record of saying Mac Jones was better than Tua Tagovailoa. So it clearly means that he has the talent to be a great player and has shown that he can step up in those big moments. And that's what really fueled the Patriots dynasty all those years. It wasn't like they were blowing teams out. Like almost all their Super Bowl wins were 3-point wins because their quarterback stepped up when it mattered most. And that's what they're doing for Mac Jones.
I love that one phrase, stepped up when it mattered most. That's the one you look for when you evaluate quarterbacks. So couldn't agree more.
Absolutely, man. We'll really appreciate